In November of 2023, the Swell Pod took a 10-day journey across 5 states, traveling 3,580 miles with one challenge in mind.
And that challenge was to interview 100 pleasantly rebellious humans to uncover deep truths about what it takes to create something that has never existed before, challenge the status quo, maybe even change the world.
This is the Kiln Road Trip, created and produced by the Swell Pod.
In partnership with Kiln, Moterra Camper Vans, and sponsored by Taurus.
I'm Spencer McKeown.
And I'm Josh Taylor, and together we're the co-hosts of the Swell Pod and your guides on the Kiln Road Trip. Follow along on the journey.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, follow the Swell Pod on social media, and subscribe to your YouTube channel at, you guessed it, the Swell Pod.
This is interview 98 and 99 of the Kiln Road Trip, and as we near the end, we thought it'd be nice to give a wrap-up with none other than Spencer McKeown and myself, Josh Taylor, the co-host of the Swell Pod and the Kiln Road Trip. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoy.
I don't know what number it is, but welcome back to the Swell Pod and the Kiln journey. Welcome back to the Swell Pod and the Kiln Road Trip, whatever we want to call it. I don't know what day
this is.
It's
so
July 2024. And what are we at? We're just releasing daily Monday to Friday episodes, and I think are we at like 89, maybe something like that.
We're definitely in the California episodes. I can't remember what number it is that came out today. But yeah, so our episode, we're recording it probably like a week before it comes out. We included ourselves, interestingly enough, in the interview list. Not that we weren't going to hit 100. Like you and I weren't integral to hitting 100 because we go beyond the 100, I will say. But we, ultimately we had this conversation on the way home. This is after the context of we were in California. It was just an absolutely nuts day trying to make sure that we were getting as many people as possible in California. Like we were scrambling, and it was getting down to the wire where, we were now about to head home. We had just recorded, like, it was crazy. We recorded that last podcast with Jesse Ranney
in the street
right before leaving.
Like 10 o'clock at night, was it? And it was pitch black.
Yeah.
No street lamps, something. I don't know.
Like we stopped recording, said goodbye, and then we started driving back to Utah. Like it was crazy. And we knew that we had some episodes coming up and interviews coming up when we got back, but we just, as we were driving home, we decided that we were gonna, interview each other. Likely a lot of that is going to be saved. Ultimately some of the audio quality, could have been improved. It was just too loud in the car as we were driving home, but that audio will come out at some point, likely with our documentary. But we thought we'd, come back together and, do this interview between you and I, where we can talk about the journey, talk about what we've seen, knowing that it's almost over, and our experience and kind of what we're up to. So yeah, I don't know, but it was a wild journey. So just to, I guess, kick it off, Spencer, we're in July. What have you thought, I guess, going through this entire journey, daily episode releases? We did take a week break somewhere in the middle of all of this, but all of the episodes are almost out. Like what has this experience been like for you, I guess? And now that it's almost over, what would you say?
Yeah. Well, I'm just noticing the little VW van postcard on your picture. I think that was from Denise?
Yeah, it was from Denise.
I've got mine at home. Yeah. I've got mine at home as well.
Yeah.
It sounded like you dissed that in one of the episodes, actually. It was like, yeah, I know it's in the advert. Oh yeah, we were going to go in the VW bus, but thank goodness we didn't. But for reasons, because VW buses are slow. Other than that, it would have been really cool.
We were both really sold on that idea.
Would have also been too small.
Yeah.
But yeah. But yeah, the camper van obviously was much more comfortable. What do I think? I don't know. It's like a bit of a whirlwind. It's interesting that it even happened. I've been on a journey as I left American Express. after 20 years. And yeah, I don't even know where the year's gone. My daughter said to me last night, I said, when did we go to Oregon? Because we went on a holiday to Oregon just after the road trip, which wasn't smartest idea in the world. On a second road trip.
You
Uh,
immediately went on another trip. Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, oh no, but that trip was like in July, August. No, no.
Mm.
I'm like, no, November. It must have been November because we got back in November. And uh, but yeah, I don't even know where the year went, and that's not really anything to do with the road trip, other than the fact that the road trip kind of started that journey off after leaving American Express. So like intense, right? Where I probably should have been looking for a job and or building a clients with my business. Um, I was like on this intense road trip with hundreds of people we met and so many conversations. And then of course the whirlwind more on your side, but trying to get it all edited and um, I don't know. And then yeah, I've had my head down, making sure I do what I need to do. So yeah, this year has gone past. It hasn't been. I wouldn't describe the last year as enjoyable necessarily in the same, just because it's been so intense. But I don't know where it's gone. Literally, I'm like, what? Like it's July.
Mm.
Anyway, that's not really the answer to your question.
No, but it's
That's
true though.
my
Like
yeah,
I mean, if you think about like when I mean, we had tried to plan this thing for a long time, I think, and we had talked about this ever since we first met, basically, the concept of doing something like that. We've talked about this before, but like when it actually started becoming real and we started to make this thing happen, it was at least a year ago. Like, so we've spent like dedicated, thinking about the time spent on something like this. It's been, at least a year. And
yeah,
then, from the time that we actually set off or, I mean, 9 months even, it's been a lot of time spent working on this project and it's been crazy, but it has gone by just insanely fast. And yeah, I don't know. So
yeah.
yeah.
I think it just ran. This is early morning, by the way, listeners. Like we're barely awake here. But yeah, it's like imagine being a film star. uh they work on projects sometimes, the seed of an idea is there, I don't know, 10 years ago or longer,
Yeah.
right? And then it keeps coming back and eventually they design it, they create it, they do it, they film it. And then when it actually comes to releasing the film or documentary, it could be like a year later, or in COVID, there was, I guess, situations where they released films a year, 2, 3 after they finished filming, and then they've got to pretend, well, not pretend, but they've got to come out and talk about this project as if it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And it kind of feels like that for this, because when the documentary comes out later this year, um, than the book, and I mean, it's actually quite nice, right? It's like reaping the rewards and enjoying that reminiscing, even though it might be first time someone's heard about it or they haven't been thinking about it like we have. It's just nice to go, oh yeah, we did that hard piece of work, and it
Yeah.
over a year ago.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously this is a bit different for you if you're editing the documentary, but yeah, and you know, I'd like to say that I followed your example of listening to every episode
Yeah, but
every
there's no
day. Is it
way.
every day? No, well,
Yeah.
no, but that's what you did, right? You
Well,
listened to every day as with the listeners and took the lessons into your life. And I've only done it to a few, but my intention is there are lots of lessons I think in there
mhm.
that probably have already impacted me and affected me in a small way or maybe larger ways without even realizing it. But I'd like to go back through and listen. And it's not often you can do that where you re-listen to conversations you had at, I
Mm.
don't know, hundreds of conversations you might have at a conference or a big event or something, and we can go back and listen to pretty much everything we did that 10-day period, and take one thing. That's my goal, is like kind of one thing back out, so that I can apply it. And I'm sure that, I mean, that's going to be in the book, and that's as we start to do that. it'll be that one thing that stuck out that was a little different to anyone else. The way they said it, the way they meant it, and why they said it. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I
you sure it was amazing?
so like just to recap, like, so we were talking about this before, but I was scrolling through the link tree, and
Yeah.
obviously, like, I can go look at the YouTube, I can go look at the Spotify with all the episodes that have come out, but for some reason, if I scroll through the link tree, I just get this feeling of the monumental effort that we put into this. Like, you can go from the top of the link tree all the way down to the bottom, and you can see every single episode that's come out. You can see the photo that we took with each guest, and it's just the amount of people that we met, the amount of experience, like life experience, I guess, that we just crammed into such a short period of time was pretty wild. And I will say, it is a lot of episodes, and there are tricks that I developed to get through all of the episodes. So I wouldn't say that I fully listened to every single episode, but I tried my best. But yeah, it's been cool to see some of my favorite discussions also come out, I would say. Like, and it wasn't the ones that I would have expected. Um, but like, Milo, we had that conversation with Milo in Portland, which
Mhm.
still sticks out in my mind as one of the more fun, genuine, and just enjoyable conversations, because I think we didn't have any expectations with that
Mhm.
conversation. And the conversation with Dale and Cindy Bowman, the
Sailors.
sailor. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, that was cool to see that come out. And it's just a bit nostalgic, right? Thinking about, like, how those conversations even came to be. I think those ones that were like the unexpected, the ones that weren't planned, the ones that felt like we just happened to come across somebody, and we had a conversation with them. Those ones, I think, were some of my favorites, just because of the unexpected nature of them. But yeah, those were
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, no, you're right. Um, if you were stuck in Groundhog Day,
Hmm.
it wasn't a Groundhog Day, it was a Groundhog 10 days road
Yeah,
trip.
yeah, yeah.
What would you change each time? Like, what would you be iterating on? Well, it sounds like you would have put a few more people that were sporadic, right? That space to kind of talk to more people like that. Although we did do, right? We
Yeah,
did a
yeah, there
few.
were there were a bunch of them. Yeah.
I know I wouldn't have slept in the van that particular night.
That
I would
last
have
night.
parked that car somewhere, that van somewhere else, instead of next to
Yeah.
roadworks at 4 a.m. But yeah, what would you keep tweaking?
Mm.
What would you have had fun with?
I will say, from a technical standpoint, like, if I can go back before the actual thing, the one thing that I really wish I could have gone
Mm,
back to improve was, so ultimately, choosing different cameras, to be honest.
mm,
Like, that's what
mm,
I would change. If I could change one thing, that's what I would have changed.
hmm
Um, but within the actual road trip, yeah, I don't even think I could ask to change this, like, that idea where, try to pull out more people that we would have just come across, because you know, obviously we partnered with Kiln, and we wanted to bring in Kiln members, but and maybe we could have adjusted that slightly, but at the same time, we would have had maybe 50 interviews if we had done that. Maybe 30
mm,
interviews across the entire road trip.
mm,
Who knows? But because, like, it's at like it's hard. I can't even put into words, really, the amount of logistics that you specifically had to pull together to be able to work with all the different locations, to be able to help identify the right people, to get all, like, I mean, how many of the interviews were actually planned and timed out with specific times before we actually left on the actual road trip itself? Like, was it
mm.
75? Was it 80? I don't know,
Yeah,
but it was up there.
yeah,
Like, that's a
yeah,
lot of scheduling.
yeah. It
Crazy.
was. Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe we can come back to it around iterating.
I want to know what
I
you would
don't
say to
think.
that question, though. I want to know what you would
Yeah,
change. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we really shouldn't be changing anything, right?
Yeah.
Because it was the way it was. But if we were stuck in it, living it over and over again, we'd miss our families, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
But no. Maybe we would have set off a little earlier that one night.
What,
Uh,
the night away from Provo to Colorado, that one or a different one?
well, the one where we were in the restaurant, um, and Denise wanted to get employed and change her career
Oh
in
yeah.
Meridian. But
Yeah. Yeah.
no, I don't think we didn't have. Yeah, I don't know. I think we just keep doing the same thing, maybe improving the questions, or we'd. Um, but I think you know, maybe even getting to the emotional side of things more, like, getting to the bottom of people's. I never thought of that until now, but
Yeah.
like I'd probably want to improve the ability to. I mean, we were in a flow. I mean, honestly, there's some lessons to just around iterate, like accepting good enough, right? That's what we had to do this whole thing. We were accepting people we didn't even know, and that's like we were both perfectionists in quite a few areas, right? And just accepting that we were going to interview people we weren't even sure about, we'd never met. Some
Hmm.
were very experienced, some of them were completely right at the beginning, and we weren't even sure if they were credible. Like, sorry, say that. We're just not
We
sure. We
You didn't
just
name
weren't
any names.
sure.
Yeah.
And even in the sessions, we're like probably wondering to ourselves, who is this person? Like, we don't even know you really. You can have this millionaire or this very successful person, or someone else that's just, I don't know, that's not even got their own business, and they're so I think just accepting that for what it is, the
Hmm.
outcome, the goal is to just complete this task and have fun and show the best of people and the best of Kiln. But so there's that lesson. But I think, from an emotional side of things, we were in a flow in that we knew each other so well enough. We could ask the questions, go backwards and forwards. We knew 20 minutes is like goes like that. Um, but trying to, I mean, could we, if we were stuck in it for like, had to
Hmm.
redo it 20 times, if we were stuck in the same 10 days, I think I'd want to refine the skills of being able to really listen
Yeah.
and notice like the one thing that I don't want everyone crying on every single one. That would have been funny by the end of the Groundhog Day that
That'd
we
have been
managed to get
exhausting. Yeah.
100 people cry. But getting to their why and their emotion and like something in the story, and that I suppose wasn't necessarily the goal, was it? It was those three questions, but
Hmm.
sitting behind those, at least one of those questions was something like maybe that last question we asked.
Hmm.
What does it really take? And maybe we talk about the sacrifices they've had to make and the mistakes in that area. Maybe it's impacted their family, or maybe it's impacted themselves, or I
Mm.
don't know, something that where it's really um they're more of their vulnerability probably. But yeah, I don't know. That's probably what I would have done.
That's a great point. Like even just the talk of sacrifice would have been a great question to get into a little bit more than I think
Mm.
than what actually came out in most of the conversations. But to your point, like we talk about this in some of the episodes. A lot of our previous episodes were much longer. It allowed us to get into deeper conversation. And yeah, I think just to build off that, there's probably a lot of room for improvement. One of the things that, if I look back and I think about what I've seen with the numbers of listeners and downloads since the episodes were coming out, like it's interesting to see what happens with every episode. Like there's a couple standout episodes that I think have done really well. Um,
Did you say couple?
yeah, 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 a couple. But that,
You,
I
do,
mean,
do,
when
do
I
you
say
mean
really
do
well,
you
like
mean a handful?
exceptionally well compared
Yeah,
to the others,
yeah.
and you'd expect, a smaller percentage of that, but the same thing seems to happen with all the other episodes, and it seems like had we maybe niched in a little bit more tightly with who we were interviewing, so specifically entrepreneurs facing this challenge, or specifically marketers facing this challenge. This is something that we've talked about even before we ever went on the road trip with the earlier seasons of the podcast, even. But had we niched down to a specific role, let's say, and a specific problem or a specific function within a role, and how to, do X, Y, Z, like we might have seen more growth episode by episode and more of a retainment with our audience. But yeah, I don't know. Like that's maybe something that maybe could have been talked about, or we could, think about if we were going to iterate something, maybe. But I like I don't know, somewhat of the eclectic nature of the different guests that we have. I like the fact that we talked to a basketball player who's also a fashion designer, and then we talked to you know, uh, uh, somebody who's writing a book on cults, and then we talk.
And we've got people that were in prison, right?
Yeah,
And now
100%. Yeah,
giving people a second chance. There was a lot of people. I think we should have some fun when we've got. I mean, I think the book and documentary will do it for us,
yeah,
but it's like going back through and pulling out the commonalities and
yeah,
the patterns and if you were stuck in that same not stuck, but reliving the thing over and over, you'd probably start to either get to more like really getting to the core quicker. Like that would be kind of cool with a couple of them where you'd experiment and can I get to the core, like the really good stuff immediately because you'd have already known what the conversation was.
yeah, yeah,
Now
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
losing my mind here, but you'd already know what the conversation was. So you could surprise them by going straight to the best bit and then go way deeper. I mean, it could be really interesting. It could be a fun experiment where you interview the same person um multiple times, let's say 10 times, once a week or even on the same day, and you're experimenting where what the real story, like the element where you really should get to, that's where you go, both of you go, whoa, that was really, really what was needed. It was good for us, it was good for you, but now I'm losing my mind. No one probably understands what I'm saying here.
No, no,
um
no.
but it could be interesting because there's so many different avenues. That's what sometimes gets me. I can feel overwhelmed at sometimes when there's so many different ways of approaching a problem, or so many different versions of an article, or like you can just like unlimited amount of ways you could do it. But at the end of the day, when you know you've nailed it and you feel something and you go, wow, that was right. And I think you'd learn a lot of lessons if you had to do the same thing with the same person over and
Yeah.
over again. um, but the other opportunity, you'd go back and say, okay, hit the 25 of those 100 are going to be deep dives. The others
Mm.
are going to be like, I don't know, we're just going to ask them one
Oh, that
question.
would have
They're
been
going to be
cool.
like 5 minute little snippets,
Yeah.
or whatever.
I like
Um,
that idea. That would have been smart because there were a good amount of people, probably at least one or two at each location where we would have loved to have had,
yeah,
a
yeah.
45-minute conversation with them.
Actually, that's just made me think of something though. So one of my favorite moments probably was in the swimming pool.
Yeah.
Um,
So that hasn't come out,
No,
but
I know, but
it
I'm
it
like
is
wondering now. I'm wondering why we haven't. They've just
they've
opened,
just
right?
opened. They've just opened.
And that would be a very cool. But the video, is that because you want to use it for the documentary?
No, it's not. It was a scalability thing, and that episode didn't have a number as well. So that's
Oh,
it's just a conversation between you, me, and Denise. And just to give the audience some context, I think we
yeah.
may have mentioned this before. Littleton, Colorado, which is a kiln that was a location that was going to be built into a kiln, which has now since opened, which tells you how long this project has taken. They've actually built an entire kiln
And
while we've been
it
doing
was
this.
a gym, wasn't it? With a
Yeah.
with whatever hot tubs and swimming pool, and it was all old and dusty and dirty when we went there, right?
Yeah, yeah. Late at night, we broke in, not really broke in, but and recorded an entire conversation. It was like an hour-long conversation between us three, you, me, and Denise. And yeah, but you were about to say like, why hasn't that come out, or
Mhm.
like when can people expect something like that? So yeah, that episode didn't have a number. I would expect most of that content to come out in an episode after the fact. Ideally, we should probably release it soon, because of the fact that Littleton has just opened. I think that'd be cool for them to see. But
I think so.
there's so much B-roll that we did with that one though, right? Like we roamed that entire building, doing some really, kind of interesting shots, and that can kind of form its own piece of content that can stand completely on its own, which is something that maybe we can do. We can make that into a, like you were talking about, one of those 30 to 45-minute episodes that, can stand on its own from an audio perspective, but also a video perspective with its own type of intro and its own type of outro. And, that's something that Kiln, I think, would be really interested in. But it'll definitely a lot of that will make its way into the documentary. But to
Yeah,
really get the most out of that conversation, it will be its own episode. But
I
I just
think
don't.
so.
Yeah, that's the. I will say that's the challenge that I continued to face was like, and there are so many other learnings and lessons and things that I would change as well from a post-production standpoint. But I think the biggest thing that I was constantly debating myself with was like, you know, the scalability of being able to, like, from a process perspective of editing 100, going through and editing 100 episodes. Cause like, I was watching the Littleton Open date and I was trying to figure out, well, could I have this episode ready? But also there were certain episodes where it was like, there was well, more that we could have done. Like, inserting, I, I won't get into all the examples, but like I had to, I had to force myself to stay really rigid to this process of what it means to go from, just footage to edited content uploaded to all the platforms, all the necessary copy, for various different things, like the descriptions of the episodes, the titles of the episodes, the tags for the episodes,
Wow.
like, and if I was to slightly deter from that, like I was getting down to, like, I knew exactly how many minutes it would take me to do an episode. And it really didn't matter how long the episode was. It was pretty consistent. But if I was to venture away from that, like, and try to do something unique or something different with it with a specific episode, all of a sudden that episode was going to take me, rather than X amount of minutes, it would double or triple the amount of time. And
Yeah.
like if I'm working on a Saturday or if I'm working in the morning before my actual job, it's like, well then all of a sudden, my entire time frame of how long this is going to take to do episode 70 through 80 is now going to be delayed, which is going to delay, 80 to
Yeah.
100. And it was just like, even the smallest changes to my process would, potentially delay and just expand how long it was going to take me to actually finish the episodes, which was going to delay the, all the other things that we wanted to do for the podcast, which I really struggled with because we could have done some really cool things. And like, even to your point, I think you brought up, some feedback related to the intro, which is something that we would likely change if we were to do this again. Like, get rid of the intro, maybe make the intro 5 seconds, and
Yeah.
there's a reason why it was the full intro every single time, because it was likely a new audience every single time, or a large percentage of a new audience for each guest.
Mm.
But
Mm.
yeah, I mean, to be able to go and change something, and it was just yeah, I don't know, it was just it was a wild process. So I don't know.
Yeah. So you'd be saying to like Katie, hey, just need to pop downstairs for 7.5 minutes and 29 seconds.
That's basically it, to
I
pop
know
out this
exactly what
episode.
I need to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, it's interesting because it does impact quality, well, creativity, but
Yeah.
actually that isn't what we were getting. We just needed to get the thing done, or you never get something like this over the line.
Yeah.
But it's a lesson in time boxing and time management and just accepting what it for what it is. And we can go back, and that's what's fun. Like we can, I mean, I can go back and listen to, I mean, every day for the next 100 days if I want, and post something that I think about
Yeah.
what they said, and that's cool, and we can rejig things, and we have that. And I think overarching, even for our listeners, just to try new things and ambitious things. You don't have to do something as big as this. It could be something much smaller, but people wonder, oh, I just want to get a podcast on, or this or that. Just go try it and see what you learn from it. But I think one of the biggest learnings for me is that, well, not it's just overarching, is that when we do this another time, right? You could independently or together or whatever, for someone or a client, or I don't, like, we know so much more about how this type of thing would have to be organized, right? Uh,
Yeah.
and you couldn't really gain that from in any other way other than doing it, you know. And it's really rich experience, and we've talked about this previously, but the importance of just trying to, and this could be a good transition into what I'm doing now. But
Yeah.
one of my clients, a very strong leader there, encourages the other day to. He actually stopped everyone at this. We did this kind of offsite about creativity and artwork, and anyway, that's another subject in and of itself. It's kind of a cool session. Then this British artist from Thailand. But at the end of it was like 1 o'clock. He said, "Everyone go home. Everyone go home and go find someone in your family that you can do something with that they like, not that you like, that they
Mm-hmm.
like. So place yourself in their shoes, imagine what they would like, and go and do it." And he'd pay for whatever that was, that experience, right? And I say that it's a, going to trigger a good conversation about just the principles and the stuff
I love
behind
that.
that. But
Yeah.
the point I'm making is that if you can go and do, if you can go and be the best version of yourself and really look after your own family and your own personal goals and things outside work, you'll be a better version of an employee, right? You'll bring back and you'll be the best person, and you could argue it's different to that because there are people that have lost their families, right? And then they're not really doing much with their families because of how much work they do. And their work is amazing because they spend 80 hours a week, right? So you could make the argument that really, like, is that a guarantee? But obviously he believes he's got a personal mission in helping people, be really fulfilled and flourish in their own personal goals. But anyway, either way, the reason I say that is because when we do external projects, we will come back with a different skill set, a different
Mm-hmm.
experience, a different perspective, a different attitude possibly. And that's why I would encourage all companies to allow people to do that, and not just allow, encourage and celebrate it. And tell us more about that, Josh. What did you do and how did you do that? And did it impact your work? And what have you brought back to the company? And so, yeah, it's a slightly side point, right?
Well,
Because,
no, yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, if I was to relate this back to the podcast, for example, you're talking about broader, richer experiences that shape who you are, right? And maybe through that you find, deeper personal purpose and value, which you can use that to bring back into, as you were just talking about, into your work. Like, but we had hundreds of 100 conversations, right? And we had, that I think broaden our perspectives, broaden who we are and what we think. And I think that ultimately what you're talking about is just kind of, going out and doing things that maybe you wouldn't normally, put into your daily life, talk to the people that you might not put yourself normally in front of, experience the things, like to your point about what the artist said, go and experience something that somebody else is, that likes to do, and put yourself in their shoes. And all that I think becomes really, really useful. But let me just ask you a question then, to like, and I can talk to you more just about what you're up to now that the podcast is nearing, that this road trip is nearing the end. But I do want to just ask, because you talked about this, like, what do you think it was? Obviously, and we've done things like this before, but how, like, if when I talk to somebody about the podcast, I think sometimes their reaction is like, well, how do you even start something like that? How do you even get that going? Um, what would you say? Like, what was it that we did that was maybe instrumental in helping us go from, let's go take a road trip, right? And to actually, we're going to take a road trip and we're interviewing 100 people and we have the plan in front of us. Like, what do you think was it that was instrumental in how we were able to actually make this idea and turn it into something real? I guess in the essence of what we ask everybody, I guess, what would you say?
well, my first initial funny thought was, yeah, just ask Josh.
That's so well, I would say the opposite. I mean, but this is where
Um,
we start to big each other up. But yeah, no,
oh yeah, let's have one of those episodes. We haven't had that for a while. Let's just
yeah.
tell each other how amazing we are. I'm sure we did that on in that van that 2 a.m. in the morning coming back to
There's
Provo. But
at least one, yeah.
we should have an outtake of that, just saying all these nice things.
Well,
But
to your point, team, right? Having the
yeah,
right team, I think that you can trust.
yeah,
And yeah.
yeah, because you either have that magic thought, that
Hmm.
kind of crazy idea that you're like, hang on, I'm excited about that, and like that's enough to then go execute. But actually, you also need the person that can then tell that story well enough or visualize it well enough, and that's why we make, a good team because even going right back to remember that conversation. For some reason, I still remember it to this day. I was out. We'd moved house to a temporary house while we were building a house, and I was just outside on the decking
Hmm.
of some, this other house that we were just there for 6 months, and we were talking about your TEDx talk and how cool it would be to do like interview some of the people, right?
Mm.
I think that's the first time. I think it was you that introduced the idea of doing a podcast, I think, and you were calling it something else. I can't remember what it was called now. But anyway, the fact is, you just have to tag. Often you have to tag team with just people that you can complement each other, have sometimes opposite skill set or sometimes just similar, but you just want to do something together and get that momentum. But then when that's presented to Kiln in such a, with the right words and the right visuals, and people catch that imagination. And for me, that isn't my strength to be able to then tell a story necessarily, and certainly not visually, in the way I want to. And so that tag team of then having a company like this, I think helped us want to do it in a way, right? Because it's just
Mm.
such I mean, it's a beautiful designed space, Kiln, and uh, and that just gave you have people around you that you feel confident about, and like that's important, I think. That's not to
Mm.
say that if you've not got any of those things in place, you can't go and do something
Yeah.
really, but just getting closer to that person you feel like trust that you can do something with, or a company or anyone, and then just start iterating. But yeah, that I what in our instance, I'm not even sure if it was one crazy idea from one of us. It was more of a like bouncing like
The
words
development
backwards
of
and forwards,
idea.
and it was like, hang on, we did what if, oh, and then that's it. And you mentioned the word 100. I wish 50 sounded as impressive as 100,
Yeah.
because then
Yeah.
it would have been 50 and it would have been
Yeah.
easier. But you said 100. I'm like, done. That's it. That's what we're doing. And so yeah, I'm not sure if that answered your question, but yeah, just trying things new and iterating and
Yeah. It's a good
setting
point.
dates and working backwards and
That's a
yeah.
really good point too. Like if so I totally agree with you. I don't think there's ever been an instance where you and I have talked where somebody pops up an idea and it feels like you're hitting a brick wall. Like it really doesn't even matter how bad the idea is. Oftentimes it's, you get the standard um, improv technique, the yes and, right? It's like yes and like let's do this, or yes and we could do this, and it just becomes this really clean, free flowing riff oftentimes. Whereas I've had the majority of experiences I've had bringing up ideas, oftentimes they get met with, you know, questions that aren't meant to be answered at that point, that can be answered later on. But, so you just kind of
Right.
get stuck on some of those questions. But even just to say, to your point, like you don't need all of these things, but I think these are some of the things that helped us, and that's one of them. To your point, you also mentioned dates, and I think one of the things that you do really well is like I think you encourage those dates and you encourage the pushing towards them and ensuring that that date stays what it is, and so that adds an element of pressure and it adds an element of urgency,
And
which
realistic,
and
like that it's
yeah,
real, because we personally have talked about things that we'll do and we didn't.
yeah,
Right. And that's
yeah.
a trap that you can be in. And most people do it to themselves. I do it to myself. This whole year, there's certain things that every day I go, I'm going to do that, and I
Hmm.
don't, and I don't, and I don't. But anyway, so yes, share, getting it out there, and at a date that you can hold each other to account to, I think is important, critical.
And yeah, and the other thing too is like I think one of the things that you do really well was there's just an ability, I guess, where it's like this is good for like this concept is good for us, but then you can also see how it's really good for a lot of other people in a way that I think it is tough for me to see. And so that helps us bring on, partners, and it helps us bring on, people who also can believe in the vision and the mission of what we're trying to
Mm,
do.
mm,
And then, the last thing I'll say is like I think one of my downfalls, but also sometimes it helps, I guess, is that I just underestimate everything, like the
mm.
amount of work that it's going to take to do something. And it always sounds easier to me than it actually is. And I think when it actually comes time to deliver it, that's a challenge. But it gives me a really strong belief that something as crazy as this can be accomplished. Like it's not that difficult. And then it ends up being super difficult and takes 5 times longer than I would normally expect. But
Right.
I think in those early moments, I think that also helps me. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting one. But yeah, it always seems it's Nelson Mandela, right? That said it always seems impossible
Mm,
until it's done.
yeah.
And but that takes some sacrifices, and if you allow too many of those doubting questions, or the questions that shouldn't be asked too
Yeah.
soon, then it'd probably just stop and it wouldn't happen. And therefore
Hmm.
you've got to ask yourself, well, is that where you want to, where you want to be as well, like not doing it. But yeah. um
So just I think as we kind of start to wrap this up,
yeah.
just like so what's next um for you? And maybe we can I'll just ask what's next for you. You
Yeah,
and I actually haven't talked in a while, which is interesting. But yeah.
I know. That's absolutely true, and that's not good. Uh, guess
Well,
we should
we're
be doing
just busy,
we should be doing more stuff together, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's next? I don't know. uh, what was your question? Well, uh,
So like
what's next? What is I
what are you
mean,
up to?
well, I
Yeah.
you haven't
Yeah.
replied to my email asking about the thousand interviews,
The
and
worldwide road
the
trip
worldwide road trip
flight thing,
1000 for
whatever.
full
Yeah.
one year.
Yeah.
And
I'm still thinking about it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if you want to stay married, I guess I understand.
Yeah.
Um, but another random thought, how about we interview the same 100 people, like
I
10
do
years,
think
10
I,
years from now.
I do think that would be cool. You could do that without a
Um,
road trip, but I do think that would be cool to catch up with different people. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so yeah, for me, I mean, I feel like frustrated and also very, very grateful for the things that I'm working on right now. Frustrated because there are things that I probably aren't getting to. Um, I'm not sure if frustration is the right word. Just real, maybe I think it's okay to accept it, but I realize that there are things that I'd like to have, built.
Hmm.
I'm saying no to certain things, being asked to get involved in product community events as on a board
Like
for
front.
for a front, and then being on the board for them, but also then taking a role where it would be like just an voluntary role, really, although they give you a stipend um, to do events and then to help at front. And I would have been there, and I love those big events and being responsible for them. But like you can see why I'm just focused, and I'm probably slightly overwhelmed by what I need to do right now in the chapter that I'm in. So I'm kind of, there are things that I want to post every day on LinkedIn. I want to post about experience and culture and the things that I love, and have my own kind of product brand out there, product community or culture community, whatever that thing is. And I've had to put that on hold. And that's why I can't believe a year's gone by. And it's not because like there's work I'm doing now that I don't like. I really think this is an important moment. And so to answer your question, what am I doing right now? I'm putting on hold some of a lot of those things. And I hope it's not going to be for too long, because I think that is part of what I want to do. But I'm trying to make sure that I achieve the certain results that I'm trying to with the work I'm doing right now, and mastering some things that I haven't mastered necessarily before. And just trying to yeah, deep dive a little bit into some of those areas. And I want to come back to them, obviously. And there are some of those things that I'm trying to put into place, which is, how do you actually design culture and culture experience, I'll call it, and brand experience? How do you design it so it actually makes a difference? And it can, and it's very hard to do that and demonstrate how it's done, but it's possible. And so that's I think the challenge. And I'm getting pulled, really challenged in some of those areas. How do you drive attrition down? How do you drive sales up? How do you at the same time drive employee satisfaction and well, I've already mentioned retention, but and so yeah, and it's a smaller business, the clients, and so it's you can get your hands around it a little bit easier, and you should be able to see those things. And so um yeah, and there are some things that I would say I often relied on you for a lot of things that related to telling the story, or the the conciseness of a message, or the right thing to pull out, rather than, here's my vision, 20 things, here's the right 2 3 things out of that. And so I'm having to just learn some of those things. But yeah, I feel like it's a different path for maybe for maybe it is for the next year or two, I don't know, but it's trying to make sure I can master some of these things, which is a good thing. It's not what I was really expecting. But yeah, I don't know if that's a bit of a too long of an answer, and this is now ending up being quite long.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, we're probably approaching an hour, but we're close to the end of this thing.
How
And
about you? So what do you? I know you probably want to follow up with a question, but what are you up to?
well, just yeah, I will say, just thinking about this conversation, and there are certain moments in this conversation that I want to talk to you about for an entire episode. And I will say, the episodes that seem to continue to do the best that we've done are oftentimes just, like us having a conversation,
Yeah, we should do more. I
We
think we should
definitely
start
should.
to, now that this must be some lesson, because I think if we'd said this previously, where we'd have said, hey, let's do one a week. It's like, yeah, that sounds really easy, but we know it's not. But
Yeah.
actually, now that we've done this many, and you've learned the process, not learned the process, you've
Refined a
disciplined
process.
yourself to a
Yeah.
process that you just stick to and accept it for what it is. It won't be perfect. Maybe it is a way of doing it, and we're obviously trying not to do an hour though, but trying to do it regularly. And it's just, that's it. It's just once a week, boom, and it's whatever we're up to. And we might not be building anything together. We might not be. It doesn't matter. Well,
I
like,
think,
where are the commonalities between what we're seeing and what we're learning, and anything?
yeah. Like
Maybe.
so I will, yeah, just like to give an example too of what I think it could look like if we,
Mm,
not to just start riffing on this episode, but I do think like you mentioned what that artist had told you, right? Like this concept of go out, go do something that somebody else really likes to do and put yourself in their shoes. Take that, put it at the beginning of an episode, talk about that for 20 minutes, right?
mm.
And have that be what we talk about. Talk about,
Yeah.
one of the things that you're working on right now, put it at the beginning, talk about that for 20 minutes. I
Yeah,
think, you know,
yeah.
give ourselves a little bit more structure, put an interesting topic right at the very beginning, and
Or we
then
could have some options.
yeah, true. Yeah, I
Here's
like
three
that
things.
too.
We're just making it up as
Little
we
board that
go
we can
along.
spin. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And now and again, maybe having some of those people just be a part of the conversation. It's not an interview. It's just they're just
Mhm.
coming in and debating it. But what's interesting about that, Martin Reed, the artist, I think I got his name right. He one of the challenges um, was to write a letter to yourself.
Mm.
Um, and I've done this before, and we could talk about this in another episode, but I've done it years ago when I was like 10, doing a little activity with my family, and everyone had to write a letter 10 years from now. But this one's a year from now, and it's your dreams. It's the dreams. It's the things you want to do, the things you've been putting off, and like just write them out and seal it and give it to someone. In this instance, it's the leader of this of the client, Joel Rackham. But ultimately, that's I think a healthy thing to do as well. And we should probably talk about those things because it's the things you've been putting off. This has had some impact on probably the
Yeah.
things you want to do, right? The things you'd like to develop and learn from. But it's just being patient. But sorry, I cut you off. You probably had.
No, I love that too. Yeah, I mean, if we weren't careful, we would be able to get into the part of taking an idea and actually making it into something really polished in an actual episode. Like if we were to keep going, you know, and we would eventually get to something that was actually really cool at the end of that. But
Yeah, yeah. It's
you
not
may
often you probably have episodes like that either because
yeah.
no one's listening to
Yeah.
them. Or
That
and
could
it's
be
okay. I mean,
yeah.
30,000 downloads an episode is not
It's
bad.
yeah, yeah.
But you'd want more people. Go on, what were you gonna
No,
say?
I was so what am I was just gonna so what am I up to? You know, like I think going through all of the episodes, like there were so many things that I almost what would you say? The regret's the wrong word, but during the actual post production of the episodes, like I kind of just what's the right word? I'll just use regret for now. It's almost as if I regretted the project because it was like there's all these other things that I want to do, and there's all this time that I want to spend with these people, and it was like every moment of free time, it was like, well, I'm editing 8 episodes today, you know, which isn't a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just again, it goes back to my underestimating of things, but like whether it was, you know, some side businesses that I was looking to do or move on professionally with something, you know,
Mhm.
or you know, XYZ, it really doesn't matter at this point, but it felt like everything was building up towards the end. And now that we're, you know, finished the editing of the episodes and, you know, there's still obviously the documentary and the book, which is still work in progress and, you know, it will be amazing. But I'm at that point now where I'm like, well, what is next? And I'm actually trying to be really careful not to jump into anything I think too quickly. Like if we in our conversation before, the one that we had recorded in the car on the way home to Provo,
Yeah.
it's completely different from where I'm at now. And I like right now, I'm just focusing on myself. I'm
Yeah.
just spending time with my family. I've gotten I'm working out again, you know, which I everything was on hold. Like I'm coaching my son's soccer. I'm actually I have an adult soccer league team too that I play on, you know. And it's just like I'm just spending time with some people that I really enjoy, you know, and then, you know, I think the idea is that I'm kind of open to what's next. Like there are some things that I want to drive forward, but I'm just making sure that it's not just another project that I put at the end of this thing that I immediately jump into. It feels like just personally, I'm moving into a next phase of something, and I'm just trying to be slow roll it, I would say. Just
Mhm.
take the time I need to with the family because, you know, I've been go, go, go for so long that I just need to settle down for a minute. But yeah.
Yeah. That's good though. That's a I think that's important to notice that, and you know what you're capable of. You
Yeah.
can do crazy stuff, big stuff, intense stuff. You can so actually take some time out and focus on the most important stuff, and then that next thing that will be the most, you'll be careful about choosing the right thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, well, yeah, maybe we'll do the
Yeah,
wheel thing.
I
I
love
think
it.
that'd be cool. I'd like three things from each other's list and try to focus on one.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure we'll then be curious to know, oh, no, what's that other thing? And we'll start talking about those things. But I think that what I'm learning this year is, and the reason I actually don't really regret saying no to, I don't really say no to stuff, right? Or at least I don't believe I did very often. I don't really regret saying no to certain things at the moment that I actually would like to do, because I'm out of necessity really, and putting the most important things first. And what I mean by that is I need to be, when you leave a big company and a salary, you've
Hmm.
got to provide for your family. If I spend time doing the nice to haves, or at least the things that don't bring money in, that's not an option right now. And so it's focusing in on the most important things, and it's helping, doing that really than anything else. And
Hmm.
my chapter right now is trying to put other, yeah, figuring out there are certain goals within my family, without saying who, my spouse, that needs certain things that by me focusing on the most important things will allow them to do some of the things, for
Mm.
themselves, because they haven't had a career
Right.
in the
Yeah.
same way, where we go all right, we fly all over with our careers to other parts of the country and world, and we're out long days, and even when you're working from home, you're really stuck in an office. You're not doing anything, other than what, you're not cleaning and tidying or looking after children generally. And so I'm trying to make sure that that happens, and so that's kind of this chapter, and I think those other things will come back, um, in the right time. But yeah.
Hmm. That's amazing. Yeah, I think I can imagine so that there's probably another project in our future though, who knows what that's going to be, right? But I imagine that you and I we're going to go off and we're going to, at some point we're going to come out with another cool thing that we're putting out into the world. So I if that happens, I'm looking forward to it. I think we could do something really cool again. But in addition to that, I also think it'd be good if we could just to like there's a lot of people who made this thing happen, the road
Mm.
trip, given that this is we're doing this after almost all the episodes have come out.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to thank some of the people, a lot of the people who helped make this happen, right? And
Yeah.
you know, um, I don't know if you want to go if you want to if there's anybody that you want to thank, but I will say, um, yeah, oh, there's so many people. I'll let you start if there's anybody that you want to thank for helping us make this happen.
Well, we could just have an episode of that, right? And just reeling
Yeah.
it off. But no, absolutely. Well, first of all, of course, our families, my family, I mean, physically, they didn't stop me. Um, and but yeah, Ari and Lewis and Kyle and Andrea, especially Andrea, from the
Everybody
perspective
at Kiln. Yeah.
really believing the value of it. And all of the directors of experience that helped coordinate with me and suggest names and make it happen. Obviously our sponsors and
Kevin
uh,
Deneen with Motera. Yeah.
absolutely. And then all of our guests.
Yeah.
You, of course, I should have started with you and Denise, for making that little bit more. It wouldn't have been the same without three of us, right? If it had just been two of us, it just would have been different.
Yeah.
So, and more stressful. But no, and Finlay, we
Finley.
could have a discussion about that, right? Just the fact
I would
that
love
how
to.
pull in
Yeah.
other people and have him on here, and what he learned. And actually, there's an interesting topic around just I was asking for recommendations for who could help and support, the social media and the some of the, that piece. And yeah, I mean, his name hadn't come up top of mind from a few people, but I was like, man, this guy I can trust, and
Hmm.
he can get it done. And as far as I know, right? he's worked really well with you and got stuff done. But yeah. Anyway, I think how about you for you?
Yeah, no, I think you got everybody. And like for sure, Findlay was one that like bringing him on board, yeah, was what helped me immensely. Thinking about the social media posts and things, and helped to make my process shorter and his process a little bit longer. And there were some interesting moments, I will say, between him and I, where not that we argued, but we just challenged each other's opinions, which was actually really, really healthy and good. Um, but yeah, he was great. He was great to work with. I really appreciated him. It couldn't have gotten all of the content out, not just the episodes, but you think about all of the social media reels and posts that went out, like, he was a huge, huge help. And then obviously, like the other two people that were really that really impressed me, obviously, was, Nathan Clark and Ty Cottle,
Of course.
the,
Now
two
you can make me look bad.
videographers.
I didn't mention them.
No, it's
Yeah, they were
like,
great.
I mean, there were so many crazy ideas that we were hoping to accomplish, both like with that crazy intro that we filmed, that skit that we filmed, and obviously, a lot of the B-roll at various different locations. And then on top of that, you know, drone shots going up Provo Canyon to Sundance, or when we got back to Provo, right after we had finished interview 98 and 99, our interviews, right? We got back for that interview. We drove into the Provo parking lot, and we're about to interview Ray Smithson from from the van, right? And like to actually pull off filming those things and recording the audio, like, and not keep the guest waiting when they have meetings immediately following that, like they were so creative and collaborative, Nathan and Ty, that I think they were just hugely helpful. It was great. So, but I think, yeah, I
Yeah.
think you've got it. I think we've got everybody. But
Good stuff.
thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Kiln Road Trip. Be sure to follow along on the rest of the journey, and you can do that in two ways. One, subscribe to the podcast, whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or maybe even watching on YouTube, and follow along on all of our social media platforms, whether you're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or TikTok, at the Swell Pod. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode.